wrong or I'm a sinner because, I was part of a plural family.
Well, if I'd have been there and given them the reasons we broke up, they might not.
Interesting. But then they also go shudder and go, oh, I couldn't have more.
Well, hello again, Sister Wives Now. But it's because tonight, we're not just exploring another installment in Sister Wives. We're looking behind the curtain at an incestuous familial breakdown that's been a long time in the making, brewing subcutaneously. Beneath the mask of happier times and these carefully choreographed segments you see on the show, what's happening today is certainly not surprising to anyone who's been watching Sister Wives over the years. But it's equally certain that it's the only possible outcome of a dynamic that's weighed so heavily against one member of this dysfunctional polygamous family for so long. We are committed to a family vision that includes one man, several wives, the united family, and the incorporation of love, faith, and mutual respect the audience was asked to buy into for over a decade. But beneath the camera lens, in the talking heads, and in the words chosen with great care, an altogether different scene was at play. And now, with the spiritual alignment of Meri Brown and Janelle Brown, the darkness that was at play is finally coming out. And the reaction from Kody Brown and Robyn Brown has been labeled as unprecedented. Social media sites are on fire. Viral videos on TikTok analyzing all the looks have broken the internet. Threads on Reddit are hundreds of comments long. Twitter, rebranded as X, is filled with the same question from viewers everywhere. How did we miss this all along? And maybe the better question is, were we ever supposed to see it in the first place? Because what Kody is going through right now is not heartbreak, is not grief. It's panic, a panic that comes from the loss of control, a panic that comes from the women who were once vying for approval deciding not to play the game anymore. For years, he played the figure of the exhausted patriarch, the misunderstood patriarch, the patriarch with the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. But if you pay close attention, you will see that each time he takes responsibility, he quickly ducks that responsibility. What he hears each time is the sound of betrayal. What he sees each time is the rebel wife. But none of this can be overlooked once Janelle starts speaking without boundaries. What Janelle is saying is that in the early years of their marriage, one thing they'd learned not to do is complain about their sister wife. And as soon as this comes out, what people hear is maturity, but what they hear is survival. And this is enough to crack things open for them. People do not learn to be silent in healthy circumstances. Silence is not learned, it is conditioned. Once this conditioning is established, silence can become I was so used to living in discomfort and downplaying my own needs and telling myself that I was strong because I could endure it. Janelle says of her years of trying to make a marriage with Kody, assuring herself that in enduring, she was strong. Enduring without reciprocity is not love, its opposite. In fact, it wasn't introspection. It reads on page 261 of Kody's. Tell the world was no summons. It was a challenge wrapped up in bravado but dripping with menace. This was a challenge from a man who still thought he had ownership of the narrative. But the world was already watching, and the world had already made up its mind. The audience immediately recognizes the change. This is no conversation between equals. This is a man who is angry because the woman he has emotionally shelved all these years now doesn't feel like she has to shelter him. But it's at this point that the danger begins, because Kody doesn't just respond, Kody puts up a fight. We've seen this before. Love withdrawn, access denied, communication severed. And now, to an already splintered family comes this new type of retaliation. Narrative attacks. Kody is now apologizing. Kody is now reflecting. Kody is now admitting to past errors. But pay attention to what he apologizes for and what he does not. He concedes he didn't take care of Janelle emotionally. He concedes he wasn't always safe. Never does he concede abandonment. Never does he concede the maintenance of some family, while leaving others hungry for time, resources, and involvement. And most essential, he never concedes the utilization of loyalty. Instead, the finger of blame darts back in the opposite direction to the early years, to misunderstand, to the conflict involving Meri. And once again, Meri becomes the scapegoat. The message is plain enough. Without her, There might have been others. However, the audience is no longer buying this. Suffering has always been Meri's reality, but suffering has been normalized. Meri has stayed, suffered, sacrificed, and for what? Being erased from the family history with the blame for the dysfunction resting with her. But now, for the first time, Meri is not supporting the system that has caused her suffering. She is lining up with the woman who once felt like a threat to her. And that changes everything, because those constructed using division disintegrate as the formation of unity. This alignment has a telling effect on Kody. On the one hand, he expresses anger and feelings of being the victim. On the other hand, he asserts that he has always felt he was not meant to be the leader, but becomes angry if this leadership role is questioned. Robyn interferes to remind him that he was the leader and tries to restore the slipping hierarchy. But the kids notice it, the onlookers notice it, and no amount of spinning can fix the visibility of that which already exists. The family is split apart not only physically, but emotionally too. And then, of course, the reality of this situation is addressed, and Kody predictably shifts the blame once more, this time for the effects of culture, distance, and circumstance. Children, however, do not experience culture. They experience absence. And this is also a reason why audiences are growing so critical of the editing on the TV station TLC. Because as opposed to being held responsible for himself, the TV program has been kind to Kody's soft background music, introspective monologues, clever editing. But social media does the editing for them. The verdict: it's not just Unpun fans are declaring the apology to a performative. The emotional breakdowns are being called manipulation. And some think the real or hidden motive isn't healing, but survival. Because losing multiple wives isn't just a personal failing, a spiritual disqualification, a public collapse, more than just a series of unfortunate events, a spiritual disqualification, a spiritual and this is why the revenge is so strong. Because when belief systems break down, the result is rarely peaceful. It's loud, it's defensive, it's destructive, and this is where this story is going to go. The alignment of Meri and Janelle signifies far more than just a shared experience of frustration. It signifies something greater. It signifies clarity. And indeed, it is the most dangerous thing to a system that was founded upon confusion. But now, I want to ask you, do you think these apologies of Kody's are sincere or just an orchestrated move to regain control of the narrative once again? Do you think there's hope or desperation at play? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the notification icon to mark this video so you're notified for future videos. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button to be up to date with all my videos. What are your thoughts about this? You guys share your thoughts in the comments, because this saga is unfolding at an alarming rate. And the retaliation is only just beginning. While the dust is still settling from the initial rush of emotions, what's becoming more and more apparent is that this is no longer simply a situation where the marriages are at stake, and instead, it's all about exposure. The kind of exposure that results when the perfectly crafted facade begins to crack, and the individuals who were sheltered behind the silence are suddenly faced with the truth. And at the root of all this is Kody Brown, fraying at the edges as the women he once controlled via separation and disillusion difference begin speaking the same language. The viewers have picked up on something chilling, and that is that the anger of Kody is not just randomly aimed. It happens whenever his authority is questioned, whenever he's confronted with an alternate interpretation of events, and especially whenever Janelle Brown is no longer willing to cushion the truth for his benefit. On social media, every exchange is being picked apart frame by frame. In one video circulating widely on TikTok with over 1 million views, his body language while Janelle talks is being picked apart, clenched jaw, even as he forces a smile while he cuts her off. The takeaway is a man listening only long enough to find an excuse to defend himself. Others refer to this as textbook control slipping. It's the familiarity of the pattern that chills the audience that has personally witnessed emotional manipulation. The Reddit forums are full of users sharing the same type of experience in the form of partners who apologized only after the consequence had arrived, who apologized for their actions but changed neither, who apologized for being held accountable as if it were an act of aggression. This similarity has served to greatly shift public perception. Meanwhile, Meri Brown has quietly moved out from behind the role that was assigned to her for so long. The buffer is gone. The scapegoat is gone. The woman taking the fall for the sake of harmony is gone. The energy she exudes even simply being around feels new, different, perhaps even earthier and wiser. One of the most telling scenes is when Meri is sitting there while Kody goes through old complaints, and while he speaks, rather than defending herself or even attempting to correct him, she lets the tension speak for itself. The tension speaks for itself because silence is power when it is voluntarily exercised rather than imposed. And Kody is clearly very uncomfortable with this. It is impossible to overlook the irony. For all these years, people have criticized Meri for her lack of warmth, her reserve, her emotional distance. Yet now, it is being asked, could that be a form of self-protection, protection against a system which was so unforgiving of emotion? But then there is the case of Robyn Brown, who is also gaining attention for her role in this dynamic, where Robyn Brown once seemed like the emotional arbiter, reaching a balance between the different personalities. There is a new viewing reality in which she comes across as the enforcer of Kody's will. You know, Kody is the leader, and this only translates as reinforcement. On social media, this has been dubbed a rewrite of history by fans. This is where history was manipulated in such a way that those who profited the most were protected. However, with the internet, the thing that goes against rewriting history, for example, is that receipts exist, old videos, inconsistencies, and contradictory statements. One such viral thread is about how Kody's past statements about his leadership are now contradicted by his suggestion that he never wanted to lead in the first place. The difference between his past statements and his current one could not be more extreme, nor are viewers confused. Viewers are offended. Lastly, it must be noted that while viewers with the family falling apart, the effect on the children has become a source of concern for the audience. The audience is lamenting about the emotional labor expected of the children to comprehend, forgive, and adjust to the dysfunctional behavior of the adults. And when such issues come up, Kody's attitude comes across as aloof at most and condescending. At least, culture, faith, expectations, he talks of. But children don't live ideology. They live consistency. And that has been in short supply. But here the plot takes a darker turn. Because when the powerful are made vulnerable, the first instinct of the powerful is usually to take back control by turning the screws tighter. And a lot of people in the space of television consumption believe that's exactly what's going on. In the current crop of reality television programming, the sudden displays of emotion, the breakdowns, the monologues, some of it looks less like vulnerability than it, and performances must have an audience. Kody understands the cameras are rolling. He understands the tide of public opinion shifting. And he understands how, once a narrative gets beyond your control, it's almost impossible to retrieve, said Constant. And this desperation can be heard, too, in the quickened speaking tempo, the increasingly aggressive interrupting, the loss of listening. What makes this scene so effective is that Meri and Janelle are not mirroring him. They're not screaming. They're not begging. They're just observing, thinking, reacting appropriately instead of reactively. And that's very destabilizing for a man used to dominating. It's the mirror effect. The fans are saying, when the women stop reacting, Kody faces himself. And what he sees, reflected in the women's calm, isn't pretty. All this has also sparked talk of the overall framework that made this sort of scenario possible in the first place. Fans are now questioning the ideology that was accepted as normal in the way that it was unbalanced, that it was acceptable to be neglectful, and that suffering is good. All this is not just within the series, it's within the culture that accepted this series. Because endurance was exalted for so long, silence was praised. And now, with the downfall of that system, the repercussions are bitter. The retribution is not always loud. Sometimes it is subtle, with a dismissive remark, or a reworked memory, or a public confession with a subtle spin. And those methods are exactly what is being called out by fans in this situation. What we are seeing is not only a family affair, but it's also a moment of cultural reckoning. A moment where our assumptions, our beliefs, our norms are all being turned upside down before our very eyes. And this discomfort shows up on the faces of all the players. As this chapter progresses, the truth is that it becomes increasingly apparent that the balance of power shift is an irrevocable fact. And when power dynamics shift, it's unlikely that those who had it will willingly move away from their place in power. Now, it is your turn to give me your thoughts. Do you see any accountability in the things that Kody is doing, or is it all manipulation? Do you believe the story that is being spun? Or have you also noticed the holes in it? Leave your thoughts in the comments section, and don't forget to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and also hit the notification button to get all the latest updates. What is your opinion on this? At this juncture in the unraveling of Sister Wives there is one thing that is certain, and that is that it has become impossible to deny that the family is no longer mending. They are now a system fighting to avoid being brought to light. Systems under attack. Do not fail quietly. The most disturbing thing that viewers have picked up on is not just the anger of Kody Brown, but his desperation. Desperate to be understood. Desperate to be validated. Desperate to claw his way to a moral high ground that was lost a long time ago. Conversations that take place are no longer dialogue but damage control. Emotional outbursts that take place are rehearsed responses. The moment it happened, social media picked up on it. This is how one meme encapsulated it perfectly. He's not apologizing because he understands he's apologizing because he's losing. This feeling is echoed throughout cyberspaces. The fans aren't arguing anymore if the marriages are finished or not. They are playing tug-of-war on whether the guy in the middle actually comprehended the concept of partnership in the first place. What's striking about the new movements of these women is how different they are. Janelle Brown no longer couches her speech to spare Kody's feelings. She talks straightforwardly, matter-of-factly. And simply because of that, the whole paradigm of power has shifted. For so long, the audience was socialized to think of Janelle as the rationalizer, the one who made excuses, who explained things away, who shouldered the emotional burden with a smile. This Janelle no longer exists. Rather, we see a woman who has attained emotional clarity. And clarity is a nightmare for a person who feeds on confusion. And then, of course, there's Meri Brown. Her change may be the most misinterpreted of all. For several seasons, she was presented as the trouble, the problematic one, the emotionally closed-off one. Yet, in retrospect, many fans think that Meri was not the problematic one, that she was reacting to being in a situation that required her to be quiet and that was profiting from that quiet. But now, since she doesn't have to fight in order to be selected, no longer negotiating for crumbs of love, something amazing has happened. She's no longer valuable in the story she was part of. This frightens the people who relied on the story in order for things to function the way they did. Since a scapegoat ceases blame acceptance, there will be nowhere for the system to hide. Meanwhile, Robyn Brown continues to find herself in the increasingly awkward spot that she has always claimed she wanted to be in. From being the emotional bridge to being the last pillar holding up the falling structure that she's helped to construct in this way, Robyn now finds that rather than being loyal, she is now merely panicked in claiming that she has always known that Kody was the leader. The audience has noticed that Robyn tends to speak in absolutes dipped in inconceivable happenings, what their family was, what Kody is, and what roles should have been. Absolutes do not apply when reality goes counter to them. And reality, currently speaking, is overwhelming. The children are all grown up. Their marriages are broken. Their faith is in doubt. And the authority that required compliance now requires empathy. This marks the level at which the retaliation will be visible. It's not always explosive. It can be subtle dismissive comments, decoded memories, calculated vulnerability. It can also be obvious rage and accusations, dramatic 60 to 1,151 televised bouts of hysteria that sweep everyone up with the convenience of great dramatic purpose. The problem is being recognized alliances are being drawn when accountability looms near. Something and chaos is a distraction. One of the most chilling elements, however, is the frequency with which Kody insists on being the misunderstood rather than the mistaken party. When Kody talks about pain, it is pain inflicted on him, not pain inflicted by him. This is important. In that healing comes not just from regret, but from responsibility. Online psychologists have expressed their views on this issue. It is nothing short of deflection, the acknowledgement of pain in abstract terms while sidestepping particular responsibility. The fans are connecting some dots that the show refuses to connect. The fans want to know why the emotional work only needed to go in one direction. Why forgiveness was mandatory while change was not. But maybe the most chilling revelation for the viewer is the fact that the system worked only as long as the womb. And were divided, competition hid neglect. Jealousy hid inequality. Conflict between the wives hid the lack of partnership. However, since Meri and Janelle are not at odds with each other now, the illusion is broken. Moreover, no one is left to put the blame on except the structure. That is why the backlash is so fierce, because it is not, in fact, personal. It is existential. Kody is losing more than relationships. He is losing the identity that surrounded the relationships, the role that defined him, the authority that supported his decisions. And when the identity falls, people like Kody will grasp the authority with the worst possible practices. Asterisk audience members are divided on this one question. Does Kody understand what he's doing? Asterisk some think it's planned, a desperation move to turn the narrative around before public opinion solidifies forever. Others think it's the subconscious, a man falling apart from the repercussions he'd never meant to face. Whatever the reason, the result is the same. The harm is real, and the public has had enough of excusing it. What makes this scene so effective is that the women are no longer competing for victory. They are attempting to understand. They are not expressing pain, but merely dealing with it. This makes them all the more different from the drama that is centered around them. This is no longer a story about plural marriage. This is a story about power, about accountability, and about what happens when people stop settling for less than they are deserving of. It's about the women who are finally being heard after all these years of being told that suffering is the height of love. It's about a man who comes face to face with the reality that power without kindness is not power at all. The viewers have also shifted. They used to watch the episodes with curiosity, then with concern. Nowadays, they watch with understanding. They are no longer wondering what happened. They are wondering why it happened for so long. But that question isn't just relevant to this one family, its relevance extends to the culture in which it occurred as well. While the cameras keep rolling and the story keeps unfolding, one thing is for sure. The story that is being told is not the story that was intended. The responses, raw and polarized and unrelenting, prove that the public recognizes this fact and recognizes that they are being edited. Therefore, now it's your turn to chime in. Is this what you believe to be self-reflection, or perhaps the last-ditch effort to control the narrative? Are there signs of growth or fear of the consequences? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date. What are your thoughts on this? Share in the comments, because this may be the end of this chapter, but the truth is going to be louder.